have you ever wanted to quit? Throw in the towel, or maybe even strangle somebody with the towel. I think if we're all honest, we've all had moments like that. I know I've had definite moments of those things in my life again and again. But then I'm reminded about a story in the Bible, a story of a man named Joseph. Now, Joseph was thrown into a pit at a young age by his own brothers, who left him there to die. His own flesh and blood betrayed him. They sold him into slavery. He ended up being accused of something that he didn't do and spent years in prison. Now, here's a man that could have allowed his circumstances to make him bitter, but instead, he allowed his circumstances to make him broken. And broken isn't an easy place to be by any means. But sometimes that's God's will for our lives. And Joseph yielded his will to the will of God. And it might have looked like, the enemy or the devil had Joseph right where he wanted him. But so did God, because God used his brokenness. In fact, the Bible says that God gave him favor in everything that he did, that God was with him. Yes, in his prisons, in his unfair circumstances, and betrayal, God was with him. It was all a part of God's plan. In fact, he used that brokenness to grow him and stretch him so that he could raise him up. He eventually became the leader of a great nation, second in charge. He saved a nation by feeding a multitude. In fact, there's another story in the Bible that where Jesus feeds the multitude. He feeds 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. How? With broken pieces. The broken pieces fed the multitude. And it's the same way with our lives. The broken pieces of our lives feed a multitude. And I know that's not always easy or comforting when you're going through it, but we have a God that promises to exchange beauty for ashes, that when the enemy comes in like a flood, he's still enthroned over that flood. What the enemy uses for evil in our lives, God promises to use for good. It doesn't mean it always feels good, but we have the hope and promise of God that he will use us in our brokenness, that he will meet us in our brokenness. The other night I was driving home from the 4th of July with my family, and we were going one direction. And this car pulled out of this business complex into our lane, coming the opposite direction. We were straight going for like a head-on collision. In moments that could have happened. In a split second, things looked disastrous. It looked like we were heading for a straight-up disaster. But I was able to swerve and get out of the way. You know what? That's how our lives appear to be a lot of the times. It looks like we're headed for disaster. Our circumstances don't look good. It looks like it's just going to be horrible. But sometimes we just got to get out of the way. Let God do what he's going to do, and then use our brokenness for his glory.